he also joined it in the sense of like, they always looked out for each other.
The desire for community, right? A desire to have people who will have your back, I think, is a big part of the appeal.
But they're creating that appeal on like TikTok of like, you know, they're dressing sharp now. Yep. They brand it as luxury streetwear, bridges the gap between high-end design and everyday comfort.
What is the relationship between this kind of fashion and the actual fear of God, which Proverbs says is the beginning of wisdom, right? What is the actual relationship? Because I don't think it's nothing, but I don't think it's one-to-one, right?
And then the other half of the campers were like, that was so stupid. Like, I was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre last week with my dad. And so I'm like, that dichotomy between kids who have already been slightly desensitized, that can go deeper into something like this, versus the kids that had been sheltered, their first reaction to this was visceral.
A brand called Fear of God sells must-have hoodies. The Freemasons are recruiting heavily from Gen Z on TikTok. And what parents need to know about how Gore travels online. Welcome to the Roundtable. I'm Evan Barber, and I'm here today with Ashley Schutzel in the studio and Brad G, joining us remotely from the magical land of Ohio. These are two members of our advancement team. So if you've ever made a donation to Access, there's a good chance you've talked to one or both of these two. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Man, it's such a blessing to be here, Evan.
I also will acknowledge I sound a little bit like a corpse right now. So hopefully that won't be too distracting. I feel better than I sound, if that's any consolation.
That is good.
I feel like you'd be a lot quieter if you sounded like a corpse.
You know, Brad, that's a fair point. I suppose what I said is completely illogical.
Hey, that's okay.
All right, before we jump into the song of the week this week, I have a small request of our dear listeners. We are trying to make this podcast as good as it possibly can be. So we're sharing a short survey, should take 3 minutes or less to fill out, with the listeners of this podcast to find out from you what's working, what's not working, and overall how we can make this as good as it possibly can be. So if you have 3 minutes, I personally would be truly grateful if you clicked the link in the show notes and gave us some feedback.
Make sure you share in the final comments your favorite lozenge so that we don't have to listen to Corpse Evan anymore.
Send medical tips for the future. All right. This week's song of the week is a new song by Drake with a, I'll say, crude acronym. So I'll just refer to the song as Janice, Be Quiet.
Janice, you know what to do.
Janice.
You said what my work means to me will one day be the death of me. They tried to kill me once, but darling, you just resurrected me. Teach me, baby. Call my phone and say you need me, baby. I'm so green, you gotta teach me, baby. From Vancouver, you'll be BC.
This past Friday, Drake released not one, not two, but 3 entire albums. So far, it is songs from the album, which is called Iceman, that people are paying the most attention to, at least if Spotify and Apple Music are to be believed. This song, which is called Janice, silence yourself, is ahead of the others on official streaming counts and seems to be a blend of Drake thanking a woman named Emiliana for texting to try to restart a relationship of some sort, and throwing a few more jabs at Kendrick Lamar. Even though in a lot of people's minds, that feud ended when Kendrick Lamar dissed Drake on the Super Bowl halftime stage.
Super Bowl.
Drake's still kind of trying to
he's a sore loser.
Get back at him.
He's trying.
Yeah, he's trying a little bit. What did you guys make of the song? Maybe we can just start with the music. How did you feel about the beat and the music itself?
I wasn't impressed.
Not impressed.
I've actually never been impressed with Drake, if I'm being real honest.
Okay.
This one kept it pretty consistent and the non-impressive piece
Okay.
for me. I also
So points for consistency.
Yeah, exactly. All right, A for effort. I also I don't know who Janice is.
Well, let me tell you,
okay.
Okay.
All right.
The clip is from a scene from The Sopranos in which Janice is told what to do.
Okay.
And there's speculation that Drake is using that clip to refer to the head of brand partnerships at Universal Music Group, whose name is Janice. And Drake has been kind of in conflict with them at least since 2024.
He's reaching.
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, it's not confirmed, but that's what some people think.
All right. Okay. Still not impressed.
I think it stands for Janice, silence thy frequent ululations. I think that's the actual acronym.
What was that final word?
Thy frequent ululations.
Is that a real word?
It is a real word.
Oh,
it's a musical term for like a vocal, high pitched, like shrill screeching sound.
Okay.
I think
kind of like Drake's voice. I feel like sometimes it's a little squeaky, it's a little shrill.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. So why would you guys say that this song became clearly not a strong fan? I don't think Brad has weighed in on where he's at on the Drake train.
I've never listened to two things. I've never listened to Drake very much, but what I have listened to, I really don't like. I am unimpressed with him as a musical talent. So this does not depart from that opinion.
So what do you guys make of this song becoming the #1 most streamed song in the United States right now? And #4 in the entire world?
That's wild. I think it just goes back to the feud. Like, I think it's just like a long running thing. And so, like you said, he released 3 albums. I don't know why this song specifically. I mean, I think that, when this happened the last time, like at the Super Bowl, people were so invested. More people were invested in it at that point. And then it took so long for Drake to just come back. So now everyone's, they feel like they're invested and they're just going to get invested again. So I feel like that might have a piece in it, but.
Okay. So sort of the, I don't know if morbid curiosity is the right phrase, but just the sort of, what's he going to say now?
Exactly.
Because this is really kind of his first response in a couple of years. This is the first thing he's done. And
so it's that curiosity piece of, what's he going to say? Like, and who did it better? Who did the diss track better?
Right. Brad, anything you would add to that?
I think it also just speaks to the enduring popularity of hip hop music, that Drake sits near the top of that particular industry. And so anything he puts out is going to be popular. And something from this album was going to hit the top.
Yeah.
So like part of me wonders if it's not even just this song specifically. It's just like something from this was going to top the charts, and it might as well be the one that has the Kendrick diss in it. But maybe that's too simplistic.
I'm not sure how much else there is to say about it.
It's explicit.
Yeah, it is, which, there are typically the clean versions and the explicit versions on, Spotify and Apple Music. So if someone wants to find that, they can, but it's not typically front and center. So seems like the more explicit version tends to be the one that is put forth as the main version, right?
100%.
The clean versions always make me laugh because like at this point they just barely bleep out enough of the word to satisfy clean, where like the start and the end of what they're saying. It comes across very clearly.
It's not like you're really creating a mystery of what the content is about. Which there's a whole deeper conversation we can have about what does it even mean to try to say that something is clean or not. I think we can park that for now, though. Again, top of the charts, and this is typically trickles out into social media platforms as well. So almost certainly people are doing some sort of dance to this song. And so hopefully this gives you a little more context about it if you hear your son or daughter referring to someone named Janice all of a sudden and you don't know anyone by that name. Or Amelia. Mm-hmm. Yeah, who's at the beginning of the song. So. All right, first thing from the top 3, Freemason talk. The mysterious secret society of the Freemasons is now recruiting on TikTok. To some people, Freemasonry represents the pursuit of communal bonds and personal development for mostly men, although I learned there are now some chapters that women are allowed to join. I think that took a while for them. To others, the Freemasons are more like a demonic cult associated with things like the Illuminati and or the idea that all religions are the same. There are a lot of rumors that kind of circulate about initiation rituals and occult symbolism, but it was interesting to me to note that the official Freemason TikTok looks a lot like other TikToks in many respects.
Very similar.
You know, you got members of the lodge dancing to electronic music. So TikTok is the great homogenizer in some respects, but wanted to dig into this trend a little bit and go into a little bit of, some of us learned recently that there are family members who were a part of the Freemason Lodge, so want to talk about that. But I'll start with you, Brad. What do you make of this trend? What do you think is important to understand about it?
I mean, I think it's nothing new. Like as I was reading and thinking and taking notes on this, it made me think about St. Augustine and his dalliance with Manichaeism, which was this Gnostic-like cult that emphasized this battle between light and darkness. And if you really wanted to fight on the side of light, then you had to join the Manichees and gain this secret knowledge. And I think it kind of scratches that mystical and intellectual itch that humans have, at least a lot of humans have, to say, hey, like, there are ancient rituals, like what C.S. Lewis talks about, that unlock the secret magic of the world. But you can also better yourself and become more intellectual, smarter, that you can understand the world in a way that others can't. I mean, we see this in Nietzsche and the way he writes about the Übermensch and this overman that is better than everyone else, that is released from the banal, common confines of morality. And it's like, yeah, no, this stuff has been around for a really long time. Yeah, it's just getting dressed up in current cultural, things like TikTok.
Yeah. So it's what I hear you saying is part of the appeal of things like the Freemasons is that it might seem like they could give you some secret knowledge about how life and the world and everything around us is really working, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see this in a lot of the world today, that there's this belief that the world we live in is being controlled by shadowy forces.
Yeah.
And that it takes a secret knowledge or a secret initiation, or like you have to pull back the curtain to see who's really controlling the world. And this is a belief that has been around for a long time. And it's because as humans, we are aware that there are huge forces outside of us and that our control of this world is limited. And so for Christians, we have a specific belief around God being in control of the universe, and he is good. But I mean, if you look at all the ancient sources that talk about the beginning of the world, like they all have these dark, broken, like powers that humans could never control. You think about Greek mythology or Hittite mythology, and it's like, yeah, like there's all these powers we can't control, but there's certain passwords and magical phrases and things that can allow us to have a little more control than what we have. And so it's always that desire for control that humans have that leads you to a place like the Freemasons.
Yeah, very interesting. Curious what you make of this, Ashley. I spoiled a little bit of where we were going to go, but
yeah, no, you're good. And Brad, you're talking about it's how when you were doing the research and stuff, you felt like it was that kind of pull towards the Freemasons about like having control or learning something, pulling back the curtains, that kind of thing. And I think when I was researching it originally, I was thinking that it was more like appeal was more of like the brotherhood piece of it. So I kind of read that interview about how it was like, this guy who is a Freemason now, like didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a lot of friends outside of work. And so now he feels like he's a part of something. He's a part of a community. And so that was his desire in joining the Freemasons.
Yeah.
So that's how I originally saw it. I haven't dived too deep into it. But I was on the phone with my father when I was driving into the office today, and I told him what I was talking about today, and he was like, oh, my grandfather was a Freemason. So naturally, I immediately called my grandmother. I was like, tell me about your dad, because I never met him, don't know too much about him. And I was like, tell me about, the Freemason piece of his life. And, my sweet grandmother, she's 90, so she doesn't remember a whole lot about it. But she was telling me that he was recruited from some friends to be a Freemason when they lived on St. Simon Island. So he had 3 or 4 friends, and they recruited him. So I guess this is a society that you can't join unless you are invited into it. So there is that like exclusivity piece to it, kind of like a secluded club that you might want to be a part of. Again, that community piece. She said that they were Presbyterian, and he was very active in his religion and his church, but he was also very active in the Freemason community. I asked her about the initiation piece because I was really curious about that one. Because what I've been kind of reading was like, it seems like it's similar to like the hazing of fraternities. They don't talk about it a lot. And they were saying that they don't tell people kind of what they do and stuff like that because it's a part of the surprise factor. When I asked her about it, she said she didn't remember exactly what the initiation was, but she remembers being very scared. She thought it was really dangerous for her dad to be doing that, and that it was just, not something that she wanted to do because whatever the initiation was not simple. It was something big, something dangerous.
So she was there for it, or
she wasn't there for it, but she was told about it before. So she said that she was probably like middle school at this time, so younger. And she said, at that time in her life, she wasn't too invested in what her parents were doing outside of their daily home life. So, but she wasn't there for it, but she just remembers being told about it, that he was going to do this thing. It was an initiation. And I guess, they had talked about that as a family, and she was afraid for him and didn't want him to do it, which I thought was, that's not, but again, they do that in fraternities.
Yeah, I was trying to decide, like, do we want to say this is different than a fraternity, similar to a fraternity?
I think it holds a lot of similar pieces to it. I think there's a depth to the Freemason community, whatever you want to call it, that maybe fraternities don't have. But it is similar in the way that, once you're part of a fraternity, you're a part of that for life. Same thing with this Freemason. She said once you were a part of it, you're a part of it for life. The whole kind of piece that she understood from it was that he had joined this as a brotherhood because he, believed in whatever it was that they were doing. But he also joined it in the sense of like, they always looked out for each other. So if anything was going wrong or something like that, then members of that brotherhood were always there for their family. And so it was, again, kind of like in a fraternity. I feel like that's one of the draws to it is that you have this group of guys that's always going to be there for you when anything goes wrong. So a few pieces. I did ask because I had read that they wear white gloves for purity. Yeah. I asked her, I was like, did you ever see any white gloves? And she didn't, but she did say that he wore a Masonic ring every day his entire life until the day that he died. And he joined in his late 30s. And I asked, kind of the tie into the religious piece. And she just, again, couldn't really recall. She said, it definitely had something to do with religion. There was another piece that they also had to believe in something else as a Freemason.
In addition to
whatever their regular beliefs were.
Huh. Like an additional spiritual idea?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
But she, so she was like, I'm going to dig now. She was,
Yeah.
um,
This is a weird topic because, none of us have firsthand experience with
Right.
it. And, you can't always trust what people say on the internet. What I tried to research it and I came across a variety of things. It's like, I can't
it's
really
very
find.
vague.
Yeah, like I can't really find any
I think
source.
that's the point of it, though.
Right. Like I couldn't find the same points mentioned 2 different times.
Right.
Like this source would say, oh, you have to be initiated into the Scottish Rite by learning a secret word, which is actually a unification of the God of the Bible, the Egyptian god On, and Baal from the Old Testament. Didn't see that anywhere else, though.
Yeah.
I know that in some of the more charismatic circles, when you're going through like a formal renunciation of spiritual attachments, if there is Freemasonry in your family line, they will often take that very seriously. And there are several things that you will typically want to address on that front.
Right.
I have a very distinct memory of that. I grew up Assemblies of God, which is a charismatic denomination. And I remember Pastor Jim at Bethel Temple Assemblies of God. Shout out Pastor Jim if you're listening. I remember him. We had this massive bonfire out on the back lawn of the church. And he, in front of the whole congregation that came, renunciated his ties to Freemasonry. He had done it when he was in his 20s. He's in his 40s now. And it was this whole big thing. He burned the booklets and a few other things. And it was like a whole big thing that I remember as I was probably 7 to 10 years old. It had a weight to it as the congregation. Everybody took it really seriously that he was doing this.
Right. When
I, read too that a lot of people don't, because of the negative connotations that come with it, being a Freemason, a lot of people don't want to out themselves as that. But at the same time, I think it's kind of like an unwritten rule in their group community that you have to. And then I also read in that article that we had linked to that it was members of the, I think police department were requiring people to, say if they were part of the Freemason community. And that was because of the whole thing of everyone has to look out for each other. So if you've got, a dirty cop or something like that, then all of the other Freemasons have to be, on that person's side, essentially. And so it was kind of like a, I don't know, it was crazy. I've never dove into the whole Freemason thing before, so this was really interesting.
And I definitely didn't expect to do it on the Culture Translator Roundtable, right? But that's,
But they're creating that appeal on TikTok of they're dressing sharp now, and they're making it feel exclusive, and they it's anytime anything feels exclusive, you want to join it. It's just your brain. It's like a brain trick.
Right. And I think it's the, as kind of you were saying earlier a bit too, the desire for a brotherhood, right? Or again, in some cases, women can join too, but community, right? A desire to have people who will have your back, I think, is a big part of the appeal. I would argue that the church is a great place to find that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think this is an area where you can rely on the church history element to say that pretty much any evangelical denomination, if you want to become ordained in it, you cannot, they specifically have things I'm ordained with the Christian Missionary Alliance. One of the main questions they ask is, are you a part of any brotherhoods, fraternities, including... And the first one is the Masonic Order. If you're a Freemason, that is one of the first things. Every single denomination is oh, you can't be a part of that. And that's from over centuries, not just the last 20 years.
Right.
So I would say on a certain level, you can rely on tradition to say, Masons, probably not a good idea.
Yeah, we can ask ourselves, so is that for no reason that all these churches have, even without getting to the bottom of what happens in the initiation and what do all these symbols really mean to you all? Is it just mass prejudice for centuries against this brotherhood?
Probably not.
I don't.
Feels like where there's smoke, there's probably fire somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfortable letting that be the takeaway. I'm curious, Brad, if someone wanted to start a conversation about this, what might be an interesting or worthwhile question they could ask?
I think you could talk to your teenagers and ask them a question around what's something larger than yourself that you want to belong to?
All right, next up, Gore Core. Gore content, depictions of violence, bloodshed, traumatic injury, and death, is finding its way out of niche forums and onto mainstream social media platforms like TikTok, where teens are coming across it, sometimes engaging with it intentionally. Some might argue that for teens in 2026, encountering violent content online is just part of the bargain of being on social media. There are some studies that seem to suggest that, particularly one from Ofcom in 2024, which is the UK's equivalent of the FCC. For a lot of teens, AI-generated overlays, like in where footage of a shooting is given a layer of cartoonish edit to sneak past the algorithm's boundary, is how some of this content might come to them. And again, most of the time, this is a story of people coming across content that they weren't looking for in their algorithm, in their For You page, something like that. There are some instances, though, as an article from Slate profiles, about a Discord group, which is called 764, in which victims are coerced, essentially, to film or photograph themselves creating extreme content, including self-harm, pornography, animal abuse, and sibling assault. Some of the details in this article are really not for the faint of heart. I was going to read another portion, but I think I'll just say it's really grim, and there's a sort of coolness to being desensitized, which is a part of the ethos of these kinds of groups. People come in after maybe initially stumbling across some sort of violent video, feeling shocked by it, feeling maybe scared by it, but then that feeling of adrenaline becomes compelling, and then it becomes something that they want to see what else is out there, what other sort of shocking, frightening things could we look at, right? At the extreme end are these groups like 764, which have been kind of classified as basically a domestic terrorism kind of group because of what it asks its members to do along these lines. Some of these kids appear to be living totally normal, lives. It's not like they're walking around with a sort of permanently shocked face.
Yeah.
The article describes some pressure that some kids felt to pretend like this kind of footage was actually funny or kind of amusing, out of a way to seem desensitized and to not seem weak or too empathetic. My question to you guys is, how can parents know whether their kids have engaged with or are engaging with this sort of content?
I mean, it's so hard to know like what your kids are watching, what they're just seeing as they're scrolling. I mean, I think if they're actively engaging in it, I think there's definitely a difference in behavior that would take place at some point. I guess I would hope. So that way, it kind of sends an alarm to you that they're engaging in things that they shouldn't be. This whole thing reminds me of that Netflix documentary. It was basically a documentary about this guy who was killing cats.
Okay.
And he was doing it online in videos, and it was like a secret thing, and then they found him. But it was like Netflix aired that, and I remember watching a piece of it and being like, this is so... Like, I'm watching this cat be put in a bag, and like I was flabbergasted that this was like being put out on a network that everybody has access to, and it was like 8 episodes long. And so that's what I was thinking about when I was kind of prepping and just reading through this. It like that messed me up. And it was just like, it left me puzzled. It left me in like, with lots of questions as to like why. Right. Again, I wasn't trying to desensitize myself or anything like that. But I had lots of questions. And so I feel like as a young teenager, or like if you're scrolling past these things and it's not something that you're typically engaging in my mind, they would have questions about it. Again, they would maybe withdraw because they've seen things like that's scarring. Like some of those things are just, they sit in your memory, right, in your mind. And, even if you're not staring at the screen, like, you're picturing it over and over again because you've seen it once. And so in my mind, it's that kind of, initial withdrawal, a little curiosity. But it's so hard.
So it sounds like what you're talking about is a sudden change in temperament, a sudden change in personality.
Yeah.
Because someone can get to the point where they are thoroughly desensitized, and this sort of thing doesn't.
But we know that initial sudden.
Right. Yeah. When something happens that when it seems like all of a sudden your son or daughter's personality is pretty different, or maybe not their whole personality, but their disposition.
Yes.
All of a sudden is very different. Yeah, that seems like a good signal.
Yeah, they've seen something that they shouldn't have seen, or they've heard something that is bothering them internally.
Yeah.
Because again, once you've desensitized to it, then it's in one ear and out the other, and it doesn't faze you. But when you see it for the first time or hear it for the first time, it's that initial like that shock. That kind of sits in your brain and adjusts like how you act, or how you talk, or how you listen. That kind of piece.
What do you guys think about, and maybe I'll aim this to you, Brad, what do you think about the argument that this is, to a certain extent, inevitable, and just kind of the price of engaging with social media today?
I don't think it has to be inevitable, but I do think teenagers are in that stage of life where they're boundary testing and they're seeking out, like, what can I do to change up the status quo of my day-to-day life? And for a lot of families in America especially, we have valued safety above all things, whether that's physical safety or emotional safety or what. Like, we so deeply value safety that what is the ultimate forbidden fruit then? Death and violence and gorecore, if you will. And so I think it probably, it doesn't have to be inevitable, but I can't imagine a world where some teens don't seek this boundary out because of the pertinence that we have given safety as a society.
That's a very interesting point. If safety is the ultimate kind of goal for a lot of folks, then what forbidden fruit does that create? And I hope that some of that could be addressed by thoroughly explaining the purpose of the boundaries which are designed to keep someone safe. I can't imagine that it would completely ever remove that. But it does remind me also of, in Jonathan Haidt's book, which we've quoted to death, that this generation has been overprotected offline and underprotected online. And so there's a sense in which all the aim, for at least for a long time, all of the efforts towards securing safety were on, well, don't go out at night, don't walk alone on any street.
Don't take candy from strangers.
Yeah, don't take candy. Which some of that stuff is like, yeah, you probably just shouldn't do that. Yeah. Even if we've gone exclusively too hard in that direction. But then what about the online world, right? And we're becoming more aware of that all the time.
And I do think the kids that would be drawn to this probably are already desensitized to a certain level. I remember when I was a camp counselor, I mean, this was back in 2010, I want to say. We had a guest group come in, and I was with the elementary school kids. It was like 4th, 5th, 6th graders. And we had this group come in, and they like took over the programming for a whole week for the whole elementary school camp. And at the end of the week, this older pastor showed a video that was like a half hour long of a Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames experience that was taped at a church. And if you don't know what Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames were, it's kind of like a Christian horror haunted show, like a drama that is meant to scare people into wanting to go to heaven.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it shows like a group of teens that dies in a drunk driving accident, and some of them go to hell and some of them go to heaven. And it's really terrifying. And he showed it to 4th, 5th, and 6th graders.
Oh, boy.
And I'll never forget walking back to our cabin after that. I was irate because I grew up in a world where I saw Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, but I saw it as like a 16-year-old. That these like 8, 9, 10-year-olds were seeing it. But the interesting thing to me was half of my campers were terrified. They were like clinging to me as we were walking back in the night and it was dark out. And they were like, are demons going to come get me? And then the other half of the campers were like, that was so stupid. Like, I was watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre last week with my dad. And so I'm like, that dichotomy between kids who have already been slightly desensitized, that can go deeper into something like this, versus the kids that had been sheltered, their first reaction to this was visceral.
Right.
And so I think, Ashley, that goes to what you said, that like, you know your kid better than anyone else.
Right.
And so if you do see that initial strong change in personality, change in like, man, what's going on? My kid hasn't talked in 3 days.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that, but also look back on your own story, and hopefully you can do it with curiosity rather than any shame.
Yeah.
But look back on your own story with your children and just ask yourself, like, man, have I exposed my kids to stuff that might have desensitized them to where they'd be okay with this type of content? And there's no shame there. Like, we've all shown our kids things that maybe they weren't quite ready for. But just engage with that and maybe talk to your kids about the stuff you've watched as a family and see where they're at with that.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think the angle of making this a customized thing based on what are each of my kids like.
Right.
And which of them might this be hitting in a different way? I think that seems really important. I would say if you've had this experience where a video like this has come across your feed, you can easily use that as a way into the conversation, because then suddenly if you bring it up, it doesn't feel as singling out to them. If you're able to say, the other day I had a violent video pop up on my feed. Has that ever happened to you before? Something like that, so that you can
they understand that's happening to you too. Like this, this is coming through my algorithm, my For You page too. I don't know why, because I don't typically watch things like this, but it, maybe it's coming across yours too.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think that could be a good way to do it. If you've not had that experience, I still think, have you ever come across any gore videos on social media? As a question that's just.
I mean, so many kids have just last year because of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I would keep thinking about that.
Like, that's exactly what I thought of as soon as we started talking about this.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, then for a lot of kids, the answer will be yes, because of that. Yeah. And maybe off of that, you could even be like, a lot of people saw the Charlie Kirk assassination last year. Does that kind of footage come up very, very often in your social media feeds? Kind of using that as a starting point.
Yeah.
I think could be worthwhile.
Hey, I'm Bree. I just wanted to pop in and say that today's episode is made possible thanks to The Table. That's our amazing community of monthly givers who make sure that access resources stay free for families everywhere. So if your family's been impacted by what Access does and you want to pass that on to other families, I'd love to invite you to join us at The Table. Head to www.access.org/The Table and join us today.
All right, final thing this week. The beginning of wisdom? ? Hoodies from the brand Fear of God Essentials have become a mainstay for teens and preteens alike. Customers say they like how comfortable the oversized hoodies are and how simple the style is, which is usually just the phrase Fear of God Essentials over earth tones, made of 80% cotton and 20% something else.
Probably polyester.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
While hoodies from the original Fear of God line. The original line could have cost between $395 on the low end and $1,170 on the high end. The Fear of God Essentials line prices its hoodies somewhere between $130 and $200. So still, it ain't
so affordable.
Yeah.
Look, they refer to it as accessible luxury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bit of a oxymoron maybe in some ways. I don't know, but these ain't Walmart prices, but they're certainly cheaper than the original. Ashley, what do you make of these shirts, these hoodies? The company does more than just hoodies, but those are the most popular thing.
They do.
What's the main reason you think they've taken off and become so popular?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know why they've taken off, become so popular. I will say that they brand it as luxury streetwear, bridges the gap between high-end design and everyday comfort.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. As far as accessible luxury for the Essentials line, I don't know. That price point is still not accessible for most
accessible
families.
For whom is maybe a question that we could ask.
It doesn't feel like it's marketed for families, though. Like, it feels like it's marketed for a 24-year-old who's got their first job. They're making just a little bit of money, and they want to look sharp and keep up.
So
it feels like that's the...
I think you're right, Brad. But what was interesting in this article from Business Insider is that so many teens and preteens now, like, if you have one of these hoodies, you are elite.
Yeah.
It's the status symbol, the major status symbol. It's because all of these celebrities have backed this, they're like, I got on to look at the Instagram and it was like, followed by celebrity.
Yep.
Like, all of these people are endorsing the brand. Again, this is the guy who creates it. He's a big fashion designer.
Yep. Jerry Lorenzo.
Yes. So he's a big fashion designer. He's very well known in the more luxury line. So again, like you said, for, the young professionals, young adults who are, they've got their own money now. This is it might be accessible for them, but because it's being backed by all these celebrities and all this stuff, and then now the teenagers want it, and so it has to be accessible for these parents because, again, that Gen Z and millennial status symbol. Yeah. It's I'm trying to think of what the old brands were. I think about, like, when I was in school and it was like Ed Hardy. It was like you had to have the Ed Hardy hat or like whatever it was.
Yeah,
like that was the status symbol. And so now it's fear of God.
Mm-hmm.
We put in the thing, will it make teens fear God?
Yeah, that's kind of my question. But what is the relationship between this kind of fashion and the actual fear of God, which Proverbs says is the beginning of wisdom, right? What is the actual relationship? Because I don't think it's nothing, but I don't think it's 1-to-1, right?
Yes. Well, I looked at the line and some of it just said essentials. And I'm like, all right, that's odd. I don't know that I would wear a shirt that just said essentials across the front of it.
I might wear a shirt that said that.
All right, Evan. But the ones that had like fear of God, it's very big. Again, I think it can definitely cause some curiosity.
Yeah.
If maybe you're not, in the status symbol piece in high school or college or whatever it is, it's like, hey, what's fear of God?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if
you're scared,
don't,
if
you don't understand, but you're wearing the sweatshirt, maybe not great. Maybe could cause some like just generalized fear of God, could be in a negative connotation. Because when you think about like fear of God and how it's, frequently, like the Bible frequently commands people to fear God, but it's not in a way of like, you should be scared of him. It's like more in a way of like, having respect for God's power.
Yeah.
And, how it should, like, obedience should guide people away from evil, and to follow God's commands.
Yeah.
That's more of the fear of God piece. But again, if you're wearing the sweater and you don't know what it's, I could see some high schooler be like, I don't know, be scared of God.
Yeah.
And then it just like maybe not working in the way that it should be.
You're talking about the importance of context.
Yes, the importance of context
right.
on the clothing that you are wearing.
Yeah. So I wanna jump off of that a little bit. Read an article from Complex that was kind of going into the origins of this line of clothing. Yeah. Jerry Lorenzo talks about growing up reading My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers with his family as kind of a family devotional, and the clothing line is named for his Christian faith more broadly. He's a Christian, but that in particular. And there's a line in My Utmost for His Highest where Oswald Chambers writes, "The remarkable thing about God is that when you fear God, you fear nothing else, whereas if you do not fear God, you fear everything else." And so it seems like that's some of the context that I think is in here in an age when we are afraid of so many things. There's so much anxiety. We're afraid of what's going to happen, etc. That's some of the context that I think Lorenzo is bringing into his, unique contribution to the world in the fashion sense of when you fear God, you don't fear anything else. Brad, I'm curious what stands out to you about this. Anything that you would add that we've not talked about yet?
I think it's a sign that our culture is becoming more okay with overtly spiritual things, but it's also a sign of it's just kind of cool. It's like, oh yeah, fear of God. It's a cool brand. It's comfortable. I like it. And to me, I don't know if it says much more than that. And I think as a Christian, I'm all about a Christian having a cool idea for a clothing brand and selling it for what the market demands it be sold for. Yeah. And if people are willing to pay it, then great, cool. He's making money. Hopefully in his personal life, he is stewarding his resources in such a way that he is honoring the power that God has given him by these great ideas he's had. If he wants to, I mean, if you're listening, Mr. Lenzo, Axis is a great place to donate to. Right. Use some of that.
We got 2 members of the hoodie team here. So I did learn there's a new collaboration with an organization from the Elba Hope Foundation.
Yeah, okay, I did read that.
Yeah, they have a campaign.
Yes.
It's called, I believe, Don't Stop Your Future.
Yes, because I love him.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yep. Named for the actor, Elba. And I believe that proceeds for that campaign are going to fund this campaign.
But that's a different sweater, isn't it? Or a different line?
Yes, I don't think everything in the Fear of God brand or Fear of God Essentials brand would go to this. Okay. So there's some things I think that they're primarily trying to campaign against knife crime in London.
Correct.
So, that is one thing that they're doing. Yeah. There may be other things I don't know.
And I'm sure there, are more collaborations that will come of that. I feel like that tends to happen, which is great. I'm all for the collaborations. Again, I know that with that collab, it's going back into a foundation that's doing good and, is making strides toward making the world a better place. But again, the prices are crazy for, what it's made of and what it is.
If the hoodies are good craftsmanship, I think excellence is a Christian virtue.
Yeah,
I think that's a thing for sure. I think more broadly, there are definitely way worse things to have written on hoodies, you know?
Yes.
I think we could definitely say that. I'm curious, and then we need to wrap this section, but I'll throw this out to you real quick. Cross necklaces today, by and large, kind of a fashion image that I don't necessarily see as meaning, let's talk about the sacrifice of Jesus for all of the folks who will wear that thing. It almost seems like sometimes Christian imagery can get kind of taken and used almost like a talisman. Like if I have this on me, then that's going to ward off spiritual evil or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that seems right to you, Brad. I'm just not. I'm not saying that the Fear of God sweater is going to be used that way, but when Christian ideas are kind of become
mass-produced,
become mass-produced, become images instead of beliefs, I think that changes what we're talking about, or at least it can. I don't know if that seems fair.
It feels like a saturation point.
Yeah,
where the cross necklace means something when it is still small and it's not widespread.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is something my buddies and I have talked about with actors and comedians. Like, there's that certain point where Shane Gillis has been on TV and commercials too much, and he's not cool anymore. And then he has to disappear for a while and then come back and be cool again. Dave Chappelle like mastered this, right? He like is everywhere and then he disappears and then he's everywhere again and then he disappears. And you're like, he has that rhythm down. Thing that becomes way too widespread for way too long, it tends to lose its meaning because you see it everywhere. I mean, it takes me back to our Freemason conversation of like, there is something about the human soul that dismisses things that you see all the time. And there's something about the like, oh, that's a symbol that I've never seen before. I wonder what it means. That draws people in for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That curiosity piece, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Ashley, any ideas for a conversation starter off of this sweater?
I mean, off of the sweater, I think you just ask your kid, like, what's the draw? If they're like, hey, can you get me this $200 sweater? It's like, maybe, but like, tell me what it is about the sweater.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's drawing you to it. Because if, their response is just like, well, I don't know, everybody at school has it. Great. Do you understand the meaning behind fear of God?
Mm-hmm.
And then you dive into that piece.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks for tuning in to the Roundtable this week. On your way out, here's a quick survey of some of the rest of the cultural landscape. Number 1, The Mandalorian and Grogu, a Star Wars adventure starring Pedro Pascal and his travel-sized Baby Yoda sidekick, is expected to earn $160 million this weekend. We'll see if it does. Number 2, a new Instagram feature called Instants allows users to send quick, unedited photos through direct messages. Similar to features on Snapchat and Be Real, Instants disappear within 24 hours or after they're viewed. So Instagram's still trying to be Snapchat. Number 3, the American Music Awards will air on Monday, May 25th and feature performances from bands such as KATSEYE, Teddy Swims, and Sombr, as well as older bands from previous generations. Number 4, Spotify celebrated its app's 20th anniversary with a suite of special listening history features and also temporarily switched its icon to a glowing green mirror ball, such as you might see at the disco.
I liked it.
But the logo switch was confusing and made people mad.
Oh,
apparently
okay.
Not you. You were into it, but you were in the minority.
Yes.
So they switched it back. Number 5, Teen Vogue predicts that the wave of preppy 90s fashion nostalgia will continue to swell into the summer with bandanas, sweaters tied around your waist, checkered and polka-dotted prints, and loafers with socks, all trending. We'll have links in the show notes if you want to explore any of this further. For now, please don't forget to fill out that survey that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. That would mean a lot. And we'll see you back here next week. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. This podcast is made possible because of our generous donor community, which is called The Table. To help us support more parents and other caring adults through culture translation, we'd love to invite you to check out The Table by clicking right here. Also, if you've been impacted by what we do, would you consider letting us know with a like, comment, and or subscription, as well as sharing this episode with someone who you think could benefit? Thanks for caring about having intentional conversations with the next generation.